All right. So we are at the 7 minute mark. So let's get ready to rock and roll. So what I want to talk about tonight is this is part three of my series, The Five Beyonds. Why did I call it the Five Beyonds? Because I understand that with depression and anxiety, you feel like you're trapped. You feel like you're encompassed by a wall of self-doubt and self-loathing and misery and fear, right? You feel like you're stuck and you can't escape. You feel like you're locked in and you can't escape. You can't get out of prison, this prison of depression and anxiety, this prison of trauma, this prison of fear of rejection. I mean, you're afraid of everything. When you're anxious, you're anxious. Like that's a, the reason why they call their diagnosis is because it applies across the board to all your experiences. So whether it's relationships, whether it's self love, whether it's the workplace, whether it's trying new things, there's always a level of fear, and that fear is not just the normal anxiety, because everybody experiences anxiety, right? Everybody has moments where they feel like they're not sure. Everybody has moments where they feel like you know they might they might meet their match. They might feel like they might not be able to overcome the obstacle, but it's not an issue of life or death for most people. And if you're suffering from anxiety, that fear of not being able to overcome, that fear of not being able to adapt to the environment, that fear of rejection is crippling. I remember when was dealing with anxiety, the fear of being rejected by someone I cared for was so intense, I couldn't even function. I was stuck in a prison. And so quite often I would act upon, my desire to connect with other people. And then I would self-sabotage, I would wreck it, I'd do all kinds of crazy stuff. I'd be unstable, I'd be erratic, or I would not totally focus on it the way I should because of my anxiety. And then in many instances, sometimes I would just totally avoid. Avoidance is a major part of anxiety. We decide we don't want to put ourselves through that misery of trying and failing. So we avoid that because it's easier for us to say, you know what, I'll just let it go. I'll deny myself the things I want so I won't have to deal with the fear that comes along with the pursuit of my desire. So it's a trap. It's a prison. It's a prison, but it's also, keep in mind, it's a prison of illusion. It's not a real physical prison. It's a prison of your own perception. I said it I wrote a song and I sing this song all the time. Y'all know I love to sing. Can't sing worth a lick, but I love to sing. And there's a song lyric I wrote where I said, "My eyes are deceivers, my mind is a liar tonight." Right? That song, in a lot of ways, was about my dealing with anxiety. And how did I deal with anxiety at the time? Well, that song was about using hallucinogens. So that's how I dealt with my anxiety back then. I would drink, smoke weed, and smoke salvia, and pop the occasional Vicodin or Percocet, whatever I can get my hands on. So I was trying my absolute best to escape this prison, but I didn't have the keys. So all the stuff that I was using for keys, the alcohol and the intoxicants, those keys were not working. Let's be 100% honest. And then one day I realized the issue was in my mind, so I had to use my mind to free myself from that prison. My mind was the key. Oddly enough, the prison was my mind, and my mind was also the key. So I had to learn how to gain control over my mind, gain control over my thoughts. Because I realized that my mind was sick. That's why they call it a mental illness. Your mind is sick. It doesn't function the way it's supposed to function within the environment that you're living in and the culture that you grew up in. Your mind is not working properly. They call it a mental illness. And because you have a mental illness, you're going to distort reality. You're going to distort things and see things that are not even there. And that's heavy. It's heavy. And when you're going through that journey alone, you feel, and I've had moments where I felt like, why am I losing my mind? I felt like I must be going crazy because I felt like the things that were in my mind that were not real were more real than what I was experiencing in real life. As weird and redundant as that may sound, I would have an experience in real life, but I felt like my real life experiences were nothing compared to the hell I was going through my mind. I would have positive experiences, but in my mind there'd be such a negative and intense and constant reaction to everything around me. Amanda, you feel my words here? You understand what I'm going through? Trust me, it's hell. I don't believe when you die you go nowhere and fry. You don't fry nowhere, and that's not hell. Hell is being a person with anxiety. Hell is trying to find love when you're dealing with anxiety. Because I was always a romantic. I grew up reading all those chivalrous stories about King Arthur and true love and soulmates and all that stuff. So that's what I grew up thinking like that. I was always a person who wore my heart on my sleeve, and I was always a romantic. But my romantic relationships were always damaged because I was damaged, trapped in a prison, trapped in the prison of fear. And there's three specific prisons of illusion that I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about the illusion in the prison of relationships with others, right? The illusion of your relationship with yourself and your illusory perception of circumstance. So relationship with others, relationship with self, and circumstance. Those are the three illusions that I'm really going to talk about because those are the three illusions that I experience the most. And I think they pretty much kind of cover like everybody's experiences with anxiety, right? You're afraid of circumstance, you're afraid of what's going to happen around you. And quite often you magnify everything that happens around you. And you're afraid of your relationships with others. You're afraid of your relationship with yourself. Those things are all damaged and affected by your anxiety and they become illusions. You're not seeing what's really there. You're just distorting reality and holding yourself hostage, holding yourself a prisoner, right? But let's deal with one thing really quickly. Why are these illusions so hard to overcome? Well, put it like this. Why do illusions matter? Illusions matter because they seem real. You can easily just turn your back on an illusion once you know it's not real. If I was looking at a hologram right now, I'd say, "Oh, that hologram looks interesting," and I go about my business. When you go into one of those houses of mirrors, these things are illusions. So you're seeing these distorted images of yourself, and they're not real. In a normal state of mind, it's not real, so you're able to function and just do what you got to do and get out of that maze of mirrors, the hall of mirrors, right? But illusions become very, very powerful and imprison us when they feel real. And I mentioned the phrase, "You needed the illusions to cope as a kid." Many of us do. Many of us do. Trust me. Me too. And there's something that I referred to. I used the phrase, I think a couple live streams ago, where I said sensory entrapment. What is sensory entrapment? Sensory entrapment is when your thoughts create a corresponding physical sensation that tricks the mind into believing that the thought is real. What do I mean? Well, let's say you imagine somebody hurting you, right? You imagine somebody hurting you, and your body will create a corresponding feeling when you feel pain. Like, oh, right? So it feels real for a second, even for a split second. It feels real. Well, imagine if you're in a relationship and you love somebody and you imagine that person leaving you. And if you're a person with low self esteem, the thought of them leaving you will create a physical corresponding reaction that is so intense that you feel like you're experiencing the reality of rejection, even when you're not being rejected. Even when the person you're with is trying to connect with you, they're trying to be with you, they're trying to bridge the gap between the two of you. And what happens? It doesn't matter. The reality doesn't matter because you're stuck in this illusion of self doubt. You're stuck in an illusion of sensory entrapment. It feels real. The rejection feels real. The feeling of someone walking away, the feeling of them telling you, "I don't want to date you anymore." It feels so real. It feels even more real than that person saying, "I love you." I've been in situations like that where somebody will say, "Hey, I love you," but I don't feel it because I'm so afraid. The anxiety is so intense. I'm totally ignoring the reality because my internal experience is way more powerful. That's the definition of an illusion. And we create these illusions and we sustain these illusions, and these illusions are sustained here in the body, in the temple of the body. And it reminds me of a scripture in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, was talking about when you see the temple fall, and you'll see like I forgot how they phrased it, but it was basically a prophecy about the fall of the temple of Jerusalem, and how the Romans would go in and tear apart the Holy of Holies. That's what's happening. Your body is a temple, and within you, there's something being torn asunder. The holy within the Holy of Holies is some kind of profanity, something dark and sinister. And this realm, this body of yours that is so beautiful and so powerful and creates so much pleasure, within you, there's something that is illusory and dark and destructive, and it's killing you from the inside out. Now, what goes along with some of these illusions? I want to talk about some of the things that accompany some of these various illusions that we talked about. In the illusion of your relationship with others, right? You have low self-esteem issues that always appears in your relationship with others when you're dealing with illusion and you can't escape. Low self-esteem. You feel like you don't have any value, so that affects the relationship. And every single relationship that you have with somebody else, the low self-esteem kicks in. So it makes you not speak when you want to speak up. It makes you a sucker for individuals who you know are toxic. It makes you willing to go along with things that don't make you happy because you want to make the other person happy. Your relationships with others, you're just having a relationship with somebody else can trigger you. Where did I learn this? I learned this from my own personal experiences. Trust me, I learned this from my own personal pain. That's where this whole thing came from, my own personal experiences. And then not only low self-esteem, but guilt. If you're a person with anxiety, you ever been in a relationship with somebody and just felt guilty just for being there? You felt like you're doing something wrong. The whole time you're with somebody, I'm saying the wrong thing. I feel bad. I used to apologize when I had low self-esteem and I had anxiety. I used to apologize. Sorry about that. I used to find myself, I used to find myself apologizing even when nothing happened. I walk in and be like, "Yo, I'm sorry." People would look at me like, "What? What are you talking about?" My bad. Sorry. Or something goes wrong in a relationship, instead of me saying, "Yo, this happened. I didn't like it," I would apologize even when I knew it wasn't wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Yeah, Pauline, you know where I'm coming from. You know where I'm coming from. You've been there too. I'm sorry. I've mastered the art of not humility. Humility is not a bad thing. I mastered the art of humiliation. Humiliation is when you're so humble that it begins to degrade your soul. I've mastered that art. People would disrespect me. I was in relationships. I get disrespected and apologize to the woman who disrespected me. I get rejected. I get lied to, and then I'd apologize to the person. I'm sorry. I confronted a young lady who told me she was gonna spend some time with me. Like, yeah, you told me you was gonna spend time with me, and she like got offended and got mad. That how dare you question me? And I was like, I'm sorry, my bad. Like she lied to me, and I'm apologizing to her. But that's part of the low self esteem and that guilt and that shame. And that's another thing, shame. Quite often, you find yourself in your relationships with others feeling shame. And this is another one that I want you guys to pay attention to: perfectionism. Quite often, and if you're a person who suffers from anxiety, perfectionism is a way to keep you from acting. You're afraid, so you have perfectionism. Everything got to be just right before you can act. Yeah, the big ones. Yeah, perfectionism. Because a lot of people out there are perfectionists. They're addicted. They're trying to make everything perfect. Right? You apologize a whole lot, Dari. Yeah, that's what happens. Low self esteem, and guilt and shame and perfectionism. Yeah, that perfectionism. Like you feel like you got to get everything right. You feel like you can't. You feel like you can't even really connect with anybody until everything is perfect first. Pauline, you struggling? That's why we're here. That's why we're all here. Now let's talk about our relationship with ourself and how anxiety affects that as well. It affects you with low self-esteem and guilt and shame as well, and perfectionism as well. But with your relationship with yourself, that anxiety creates self-sabotage. Because quite often, especially when you have a relationship with yourself, you'll sabotage things that you're trying to do because you're afraid of what's going to happen if you succeed, or you're afraid of what's going to happen if you don't succeed. But you self-sabotage it. You self-sabotage quite often to keep yourself from being put in a situation where there's going to be pressure. It's a coping skill. It's a coping mechanism. And like with any coping mechanism, not a coping skill, but with any coping mechanism, it's a way of relieving pressure. So when you feel that pressure on you, right? You feel the pressure of trying to get something done, the pressure of trying to have faith in yourself, the pressure of trying to build up your self-esteem, and you self-sabotage. It's too much pressure. It's hard to fight through that pressure and get to the other side. It takes a tremendous amount of willpower. And willpower is connected in a lot of ways to self-esteem. It's connected to your self-esteem. So when you're fighting, trying to build yourself up and empower yourself, you got to fight through this mountain of self-doubt. And then, fighting through that mountain of self-doubt is so hard. And you just self-sabotage. You're right. It's an attempt to avoid confrontation, and that's confrontation with everything. Confrontation with everything. Confrontation with your own feelings. Confrontation with self-improvement. Confrontation with your own trauma. Confrontation with from every perspective, and you're trying to avoid it. You're trying to avoid it. Even if you're having a confrontation with, yourself, you're gonna avoid that too. Exactly. Yeah. And there's something else too. I was thinking about it as I was preparing this. There's something else that we do in our relationships with ourselves if you have anxiety and low self-esteem. And you know what that is? It's need. I call it need starvation. What's need starvation? Well, let's say you need something. You'll starve yourself of what you need. You'll keep the things that you need away from you. You'll push them away because your relationship with yourself is damaged. See, when a person has a positive relationship with themselves, they make sure they get what they need. You got a positive relationship with yourself. When you're hungry, you're going to eat. Self-duration. You need some new shoes, you're going to get some new shoes. If you love yourself, you're going to eat healthy if you love yourself. If you're tired, you're going to go to sleep. There's nobody in the world that sleeps better than a beautiful woman. Beautiful women, they get sleepy. I'm going to bed. They're going right to sleep. I was married. My wife was very beautiful and attractive. She got tired. I'm going to bed. She'd be asleep in 5 minutes. But me, low self-esteem, I suffer from need starvation. I need to sleep. Nope, I'm gonna stay up. I'm tired. Nope, gotta keep pushing myself. I need new shoes. Nope, I ain't getting no shoes. I remember one time I had a pair of shoes. I walked in them so much I had a hole at the bottom of my shoe. I was outside. It was raining. My feet were cold in the rain. I was like, "What's going on?" I went to my job and looked at the bottom of my shoe. There was a hole in the bottom of my shoe. Need starvation. You need shoes, but I felt like, nah, I'm not getting no shoes. Low self-esteem makes you push away the things that you need. I used to work myself to the point of exhaustion. I used to stay up for days on end. I used to just give up sleep. I didn't need for you to punish me. I did it to myself on my own. Exactly. We are so harsh to ourselves, and that's all based on the anxiety that we're struggling with. We're struggling with this anxiety. And so we starve ourselves of what we really need. We need affection. We're going to push away anybody trying to be affectionate. We need a relationship to help empower us and help us feel better. We're going to push that away. You need love. We're going to starve ourselves of love. I used to date a young lady back in the day, and I didn't realize that she had anxiety issues until later on. But I remember like she would just work all day long, and I would say, "Look, you haven't eaten anything. Why don't you stop for a second and get something to eat?" No, I'm not gonna eat. Thank you, Bailey. But she would say, "No, I'm not gonna eat," and it's because she had anxiety. And a big part of anxiety and low self-esteem is need starvation. We starve ourselves of what we really need. It does correlate with the nervous system being dysregulated. That's a part of it too, because sometimes you will like lose your appetite, things of that nature. But a big part of it is just the fact that because of our low self-esteem and our anxiety, we'll deny ourselves the things that we want as a form of self-punishment. A form of self-punishment. I'm not worthy. Or you kind of just become numb. You kind of just become numb to your body's needs. She want to bust his shoelace on a pair of frequently. Pauline, you got a busted shoelace, and that you don't want to repair. Is that what you mean? And so that's what we do. That's what we do. Why do I think we indulge in self punishment? Low self esteem. Low self esteem. It's a way of self punishment is a way of making our beliefs real. And 90% of what we do as human beings is about making our beliefs real. Many of us, if you think a particular person is not a good person, then you're gonna do whatever you possibly can to prove that. That's why sometimes you'll see an individual. If an individual doesn't trust the celebrity, what do? They go on Twitter, they go on Instagram, they attack the celebrity because they want the celebrity to react in a negative way, and that will make that person's belief seem real. He's a bad person. He got a short temper. He's probably the friendliest celebrity in the world. But then you hop on Twitter and say, you know what, your mother's dead, and I hate your kids. Then that person flips out. Oh my God, how dare you talk to me like that? And that person was like, oh yeah, see, look, I told you. A lot of what we do is about trying to make our reality seem real. So if you feel like you're worthless, you're gonna do something to prove that. How can I prove to myself I believe I'm worthless? How can I prove that? Well, how about I just stop eating for a couple of days? I'm really, really sick. How could I prove that I'm worthless? You know what? I won't take care of myself. I'm really like I told you guys, I used to be exhausted. I'm not going to sleep. I'm gonna walk. I used to walk from one end of Hartford, Connecticut, my hometown, to the other end of Hartford, Connecticut, in the middle of the night, singing old blues songs, and then go back home, then take a shower and go to work. I'm not gonna sleep because laying in my bed and being comfortable feels like more than I deserve tonight, right? And last but not least, another illusion that entraps us? Circumstances. When you're a person who's going through anxiety, what happens? You look at circumstance and everything just seems horrifying, scary, apocalyptic, right? The whole world feels like it's going to end every single moment out of every single day. One you get a letter saying, "Hey, you overdoing the bill." Oh my God, they're gonna kick me out of my apartment. You get a phone call where you got to pay a bill. Oh my God, I don't have the money. I don't know what I want to do. Oh my God. Somebody calls you. I used to get phone calls, and my first thought before picking up the phone was, I hope nobody's dead. Yeah, yeah. Entertaining ourselves with our own insanity. We're distorting reality, and we're constantly fueling that fire of illusion because these illusions can't survive unless we feed them. Your illusions are like pets. Your illusions are pets. So when you have illusions of low self-esteem, illusions of self-sabotage, illusions of apocalyptic circumstances, you got to feed the illusion. We're feeding these illusions day in, day out. It's a constant, non-stop nightmare fest. Our internal fear is so powerful. Just like if you confront a a threat. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in this situation. I hope not. But yeah, there's been times, I grew up in the hood. So there's been times when you be walking down the street and somebody starts shooting. What happens when somebody starts shooting? Everything in reality gets distorted at that moment when you're getting shot, or somebody is shooting around you and you feel threatened. What happens? Time seems to slow down and speed up simultaneously. Your heart starts beating really, really fast. You feel like you can run fast as anything. You feel like you're faster than the wind. Everything gets distorted when you confront a threat. But when you suffer from anxiety, everything's the threat. When you suffer from anxiety, holding hands with somebody you find attractive is a threat. When you're suffering from anxiety, a kiss goodnight is a threat. You suffering from anxiety, somebody giving you a hug is a threat. You suffering from anxiety, it's raining outside. That's a threat. Something could go wrong. So all of these things around us have created a cage of illusion. Created a cage of illusion. Now, we want to go beyond these illusions. How do we get beyond the illusion? When these illusions seem so powerful, anxiety is so powerful that it affects your central nervous system. So the fear is not just something in your mind, it lives in your body. That makes it seem real. Like I said earlier, sensory entrapment makes whatever is in your mind feel real. Sammy, I appreciate you too. And thank you for being here. How do we get beyond that? Well, here's what I had to do to get beyond that. First thing I did to get beyond that was mindfulness. I had to start being mindful and meditating every single day. I would get up in the morning on my way to work. I would say, I am in the present moment. And my brain would be thinking back to the past. Remember you? Remember this? Remember that? Remember that girl laughed at you? Remember you were in love with that girl and you wrote her a love letter and you wrote her a poem and she threw it in the garbage? Thank you, Dari. Remember that time you asked that girl out and she laughed at you in public in front of her? Your mind is going to the past, constantly going back to the past. Or you're worried about something in the future. Oh my God, I got to pay this bill, but I don't have the money. You constantly worried about something. But I had to literally wrestle with my own mind, wrestle with my own thoughts, and train my thoughts to realize I am here in the present moment. And 9 times out of 10, what happens? In the present moment, you're just fine. There may have been issues in the past, and there might be issues in the future. But right here, right now, you're good. That's one thing I had to do a lot. I had to understand, right here, right now, I'm good. I'm not worried about that no more. I'm not worried about what happened before. I'm not worried about what's going to happen. I've gone beyond time. Just like I was talking about in my last live stream. I went beyond time. By putting myself in the present moment, I went beyond time. And when you go beyond time, what happens? When you're mindful, you go beyond illusions as well. You begin to recognize the reality of things. And you also begin to recognize that a lot of what you're afraid of is just stuff, just sensations in the body. Your muscles get tight. You think something bad is going to happen. What happens if I relax the muscles? I used to have panic attacks. Okay, what if I sit down and breathe slow? And then I found out that when you have a panic attack, your body can metabolize the adrenaline from a panic attack in 10 minutes. Set my timer. Exposure. But we'll get to exposure in a few. I don't want to jump the gun. Next, how did I get beyond illusion? Devotion. Needs to be a podcast episode. Yeah, they don't let me promote other platforms here in Inside Time. And that's part of their rules, and I respect it. I respect it. But yeah, devotion. Devotion to what? Well, I'm a spiritual person. I do live in spirit. I do believe in a higher power. I do believe in a divine essence from which we all comes. I became devoted to that. You can't see it, smell it, touch it, but at the same time, by calming the mind, you begin to have these experiences where you get to feel that energy around you. And in Hinduism, they talk about the Om sound. Om. And I used to think, that's interesting. Om. And then one day I heard it. One day I was meditating and I was so deep in a meditative state, my mind was totally quiet. My mind was totally, I couldn't, my thoughts were silent. And I could hear it. Oh, I was sitting in the backyard in my house in East Hartford. And they used to have like a little brook and a little area where trees were at. It was really beautiful. And I used to go back there and I used to meditate. And it used to be like a little, I think it was a deer, like a deer skull. I don't know how we got there, but there was a deer skull. And I used to sit there and meditate in that spot. And I used to sit and meditate and hear the sound of the water trickling in the brook and hear the sound of the wind in the trees. And then one day I'm sitting there and I'm meditating and I hear, oh, you're from Mumbai, okay. Have you ever heard the Om sound while you were meditating? But as I was saying, devotion to this unseen flow of energy in the universe all the time. Okay, so you know where I'm coming from, Balin. But yeah, I started to hear these sounds and have these experiences and tap into this energy and feel alive in different ways. I remember one time I was meditating, listening to some Indian music, as a matter of fact, Balin. Oh, you're a sound designer. Okay. Yeah, that Om sound. I hear you, definitely. Absolutely. Positive vibrations. One time I was meditating and I was listening to some Indian music. And this is when I was going through my Krishna phase where I was like obsessed with Krishna. You know what I mean? And and I'll get to that later on. But yeah, I was listening to a lot of music about Krishna. I was obsessed with Krishna, and one day I'm laying in my bed and I'm meditating, and it was a beautiful early summer day. Temperature was perfect outside, light coming through the window. I'm laying in the bed in my bedroom, listening to this song, the Dharma Darstakan, or I think that's the name of it, Dharma Darstakan song for Krishna. And as I'm meditating, my eyes are like half open, half closed, and I look above me, and I'm not moving, but I see Krishna spinning around above me. Couldn't see his face, but I'm seeing him spin around. And then I seen his hand grab a beam of sunlight like a sword, right? And then stab me in the forehead with it. My body starts shaking. I'm like, whoa! I start crying. It's beautiful. But it's devotion to whatever you want to call it. Devotion to God. I don't mind using the term God, but now a lot of people feel like the term God is antiquated. But I devotion to God, yes. Devotion to myself. Devotion to the unseen power of the universe. Devote yourself to health. Devote yourself to becoming better. It's that devotion that's going to help you get beyond the illusion and see reality. Bhakti. Ah, yes. Yes, Ryan. Bhakti, exactly. That devotion is very important because devotion is a means of stilling the mind. Devotion in and of itself is meditation. What is meditation? Meditation is using a series of techniques, any technique that you can think of, you can focus the mind on one thing to clear the mind so you can see things as they are. Bhakti, devotion, is meditation. It's the heart of meditation. Bhakti, devotion, love. Focus yourself on one thing, and your mind will be intensely focused with bhakti, with devotion. And when you focus your mind on that one thing, everything else falls away and you start to see things as they are. These huge nightmarish things you think are just evil, huge monsters that you can't defeat, all of a sudden they don't mean as much when your mind is still and you can still the mind through devotion. And once you still the mind, you go beyond illusion and you go beyond mind and you go beyond time. Accountability is another way I was able to go beyond illusion. In many of the spiritual traditions that I've studied, excuse me, I'm knocking stuff over here. In many of the spiritual traditions that I've studied, they tell you that God exists within you or that you are a physical manifestation of God. There's a Sufi mystic named Ibn Arabi who says that God or Allah is the only reality. So you are simply a manifestation of that supreme source of reality, God. So you are sort of like God, an incarnation or manifestation or a symbol of the essence of God, right? So that's when you start thinking in those terms, you start thinking in terms of accountability, internal locus of control. Where's the force and the power and energy to control the circumstances of my life? They're inside me. So when I started looking at certain circumstances, I didn't think, oh my God, why me? My marriage didn't work out. I didn't think, oh my God, why me? I thought, okay, how did I contribute to this? And I learned a lot about myself, and a lot of illusions fell away when I took responsibility. It ain't about, oh, it's her fault. You have a bad breakup, oh, it's her fault, his fault. Nah. Something happens in your life that you don't like. Okay, ask yourself, how did I create this? How did I make this happen? And then by asking yourself how you made it happen, you can figure out how you can undo it or get beyond it. Accountability is a very important way of taking away illusion because we live in the world. We think that other people and other forces have power over our personal lives. You think something else has power over your personal lives. Your relationship ain't working out. Your money ain't working out. This ain't working out. That ain't working out. You understand and you see for yourself how did I contribute to this, and not just contribute. How did I create it? There's a spiritual teacher I heard, C. Freeman L. And he used the phrase God, God, generator, operator, destroyer. You're the one doing all of this. You're the one creating it, you're the one making it work, and you're the one destroying it and destroying things around you as you go. That's you. God. And when I took that responsibility upon myself, my life began to change because I started making decisions to impact the outcome of my life. And when you start taking accountability, you start making decisions, and you take back your power. And you go beyond the illusions. You see things as they are when you actually gotta start making decisions based on reality and facts. When I take accountability, taking accountability is almost always an immediate way of shattering all illusions. Now once again, when a person is dealing with low self-esteem, accountability is one of those things that can be a double-edged sword. I can take accountability for decisions I made in relationships that empowers me. But when things go wrong and I say, "Oh, it's all my fault. I hate myself," that's disempowerment. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about weaponizing accountability against yourself. How many years it took me to get to this point? Man. Yeah, I mean, I'm learning every single day. So it's like I feel like when you say get to this point, I feel like I'm only in the middle of my story. Like, I don't know. It took me, to be honest, probably millions of years. It probably took me millions of years to get here. In Buddhism, when they talk about the Buddha, how long it took for him to become enlightened, and I'm not saying I'm enlightened, but with the Buddha, they asked how long it took you to become enlightened, and he broke it down and said it took him millions of lifetimes. Millions of lifetimes, not millions of years, millions of lifetimes. That's how it feels to me anyway. I can't even tell you how long it took me to get where I am right now. I'll just say millions of lifetimes. I've been here for a long time. I done lived in this one lifetime. I've lived at least 3 different lifetimes. Being the traumatized, scared kid, the goofy, nerdy teenager, the rap hip hop artist, the underground hip hop artist because I wasn't no star, the rebel, the maniac, the Jim Morrison, Dionysian pervert, the pill popping, iconoclast, and then a spiritual seeker. It's a lot of lifetimes in one life. So moving forward, another thing that helps us see beyond illusion, exposure. What do I mean by exposure? When I say exposure, I mean knowledge, communication, and presence. Expose yourself to knowledge about things. If you don't know about things, they seem more terrifying. Especially if you got, I should write a book. I did write a book. I wrote a book for kids to teach kids meditation. And I'm working on another one now, actually. Ryan, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Ryan. But yeah, going back to what I was saying. So the first step to exposure, knowledge. When something and when you're ignorant about something, it seems terrifying. I noticed that the individuals who suffer from the worst kind of anxiety are usually individuals who don't read. As strange as that sounds, if you don't read and you don't study, everything seems so terrifying. But if you read and you study and you seek knowledge, what happens when you seek knowledge? Things don't seem as terrifying anymore. They're not. They're not terrifying because you understand the nature of them. You ever see individuals who they have like in Ethiopia? In Ethiopia, you'll see people just walking around with lions in the palace of the Emperor Haile Selassie. Peace and blessings upon that brother. Emperor Haile Selassie used to have lions and cheetahs just walking around in the palace. How? How could you just walk up to a lion or a cheetah like it's a pet and pet it? Like it's nothing. You wanna know how? Because he knew. He had knowledge. He knew the nature of these things. So by knowing the nature of a thing, you don't have to be afraid of it. You ever see them people walking around with snakes on their neck? When I was young, you go to these wild parties, you go to these wild bars. There's always a drunk college chick somewhere with a snake around her neck. Always. Every festival, every open mic, every concert, there's always a blonde haired, like short, short haircut, blonde hair or red hair with a snake around her neck. Every single time. And I'm like, how you walk around with a snake? I say, oh, I'm not worried about this snake. Why is she so calm with a snake around her neck? She understands the nature of the snake. Once you understand things and you get knowledge, things become much less terrifying, no matter what it is. And you're not able to create these catastrophic illusions and these terrifying illusions within your mind if you have the knowledge to understand the nature of a thing. Another thing with getting beyond the illusion, communication. Just talk. As a person who deals with anxiety, as a person who deals with anxiety, we draw so many conclusions out of the course of one day about how people feel about us, about how people don't like us, about how people don't want us around. Man, just talk to people. You'll be surprised at how many illusions can get shattered in one conversation. Just telling somebody how you feel quite often will help you connect with them and bond with them. Think when you go around thinking in your mind that all this apocalyptic stuff is happening and that people are plotting against you. I used to smoke weed back in the day and walk into a room full of people and be like, they're all gonna kill me. Kai, I'm glad you're here too. I used to walk into a room full of people like, oh my God, they all gonna kill me. I used to think everybody was plotting against me, especially when I was high. And then one day I'm high and I'm over my boy house. We in the backyard chilling on the back little patio. I'm high. And then his girlfriend walks in. My boy girlfriend walked in. And I'm like, oh man, she know I'm high. She hate me. She don't want me to be here. And then my boy pulled me aside. He was like, yo, she high too. What you talking about? Like in my mind, I'm thinking everybody hating me and nobody even cares. Everybody enjoying themselves. We're all friends, but in my mind, I'm just creating this weird scenario where everybody want me to leave and nobody want me around. But that's just anxiety. But just by me talking, just by him telling me that and me talking a little bit, it shattered the illusion. I just laughed. Okay, good to go. Sometimes just telling people, like, sometimes I feel like maybe you don't want me around. And they'll look at you and be like, wait, what are you talking about? I just did this for you. I just did that for you. I'm trying to keep you around because I care about you. Cut it out. Yeah, yeah, Dari. Yeah, yeah, me too. Some people can't handle that. Like, right, like I have a thing with caffeine. Like, I'm real caffeine sensitive too. I don't know if you are, but with caffeine, I would like one cup of coffee. One cup of coffee would last me probably like a week. Like if I bought like a large coffee, if I bought like a large coffee, like a donuts, it'll last me like a week. I got a can of like an energy drink in the refrigerator right now. I've had that for like a month because I'm so sensitive to caffeine. I get the jitters and all that stuff. So, you know, I think that's an anxiety thing. But yeah, communication is an excellent way. Decaf to pretend. Yeah, and communication is an excellent way to shatter your illusions. And last but not least, presence. What is presence? What I mean by presence? What I mean by presence is physically exposing yourself to certain things. I'm nervous about going to clubs. I don't like being around crowds of people. Okay, well, go for 5 minutes. When I had one of my really severe panic attacks, it was at a grocery store. So every time I went to that grocery store, I would feel so uncomfortable. I would feel the waves of fear coming over me. And then one day I said, I'm not gonna live in fear. It's a grocery store, and it's right next to where I live. Because at the time I was living with my girlfriend, and I'm like, yo, this is a grocery store. It's next to where I live. I don't want to have to go all the way across town just to buy groceries. So what I did was I would go in there and time myself. I had my timer. I said, okay, I'm gonna go in there for 3 minutes. I went in there for 3 minutes. Then 3 minutes was too easy. Then 5 minutes. And then after a while, my body began to retrain itself, and I realized, okay, the fear is an illusion. The fear is just an illusion. And I got beyond that illusion and started living in the reality once again, just by exposing myself to the situation. Sometimes we'll be afraid of having conversations with people about things. Expose yourself to that person. Expose yourself to the conversation. I'm not saying rush in foolishly. I'm not saying put yourself in danger. But sometimes exposing yourself to something will shatter the illusion and put you face to face with reality. And that's what we're trying to do. Once we get beyond the illusion keeps us locked in fear. Once you get beyond that, guess what happens? Your fear reduces. Once you get beyond that, your fear reduces. You're in a relationship, you're afraid it's going to end. And then when it ends, guess what happens? Your fear goes down. You realize, hey, you know what? It's not the end of the world now that I'm not with that person. It's not over. You know, you think about situations, oh my God, I could never go there. I could never say that. I could never do that. And then you do it and you realize, you know what? It's not that bad. So, say for instance, you're a person who writes music and you think I could never perform in front of people. Do it. I got sure. I used to, I went through a phase where I wrote songs. I can't sing, I can't play an instrument, but I wrote songs. And then one night, me and my boy, we was hanging out, and I had a little too much to drink. I decided I'm gonna sing. I never sang before in front of nobody. I used to be so scared. I got up on stage and started singing the song "The Spy" by the Doors. I'm a spy in the house of love. I know the dream that you're dreaming of. I know the words that you long to hear. I know your deepest secret fear. And then when I sang that song, everybody started clapping. And then I wasn't afraid no more. And then I was able to share the stuff that I was writing with other people. And it wasn't that bad. And I learned a lot. And I had fun. I think it was Will Smith that said everything that you want is on the other side of fear. But what is it that you're really afraid of? What you're really afraid of 9 times out of 10 ain't really there, just an illusion. Sammy, you want me to sing more often? I'll say, please don't get me started. Sammy, don't be asking me to sing more often because I will start singing. I love singing. Even if I can't sing that much, I can't sing that well. I just love the feeling, the physical feeling of singing. I love. But yeah, one time I did this was like last year. I did a live stream where I sang 3 love songs that I wrote. That was really fun. That was real fun. Don't ask me that. I'm gonna bring that back. I'm gonna hit y'all with some more vocals. Don't play with me. Don't threaten me with a good time. You know what? I definitely believe that. Daria, I definitely believe that. You sure you ready? All right, bet. After I do this, that's what I'm gonna do. After I do this, I'm gonna sing something for y'all. Now I'm excited. Now I'm gonna write something. I'm gonna write some heat. Come up with something for y'all. But yeah, this is a really cool conversation. And I really like when we have these conversations and it's not just me talking, like it's back and forth and we're all learning, we're all connecting. Like I always say, this is our campfire. We're all here to support each other. And listen, if you guys have, if you're dealing with stuff, if you're struggling with stuff, we're here. I'm here pretty much almost every Wednesday. And one of these nights, if you guys want to come in and just say, hey, let's just talk because I'm feeling stressed, well, by all means, you got questions, that's what we're here for. Your heart warmed when I sang. Okay. See, now you gassing my head up. You gonna have me? I'm gonna come back next week with the microphone going in. Gonna have me get my Jim Morrison on. I'm gonna come in here with the mic like this, ready to go all the way in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it was beautiful spending time with y'all. I'm gonna wrap it up tonight, and yeah, I'll be back next week for part 4 of the Five Beyond series that I'm doing. And keep in mind, if the spirit moves you, if you want to make a donation, you're more than welcome to. If not, that's fine as well. All donations are going to helping me to market and promote the book that I wrote. I can't promote it here, but I did write a book teaching kids 8 to 12 how to meditate. Can't market it here. Can't do any of that stuff here on Insight Timer. But that's what I'm going to be using the funds for. So I appreciate all donations. And you guys have a wonderful night. Get some sleep. Get some rest. Wherever you are, understand that I love you. Hope for the best for you, and understand I want you to tap into your inner self, your inner power, your inner God. Do I teach meditation? Yes. When I first started doing these, they were based on meditation. I do teach meditation. All right, good night, guys. Salute. Love you all. Be good. Good night, Insta.